Keep going in verse 35 to verse 37, because I love this. Jesus merges Calvinism and one of the tenets of Arminianism in one verse. It's wonderful. He says this, verse 37, all that the Father gives me. Do you know what that is? That's called election. You ever heard of election? The Father giving to Jesus Christ, electing and giving to him. That's the Father giving me. That's election. All that the Father gives me, that's election, will come to me. You know what that is? Free will of choice. From our perspective, on this side of heaven, I heard the gospel, and I believed and responded and chose Jesus Christ. I freely chose him. That's how the Bible always presents it from our side. You know what gets confusing? People say, no, you didn't really choose. You didn't. Oh, the Bible says it. The Bible says, if you believe, you'll be saved. If you call on the name of the Lord, you are saved the instant that you call on the name of the Lord. Now, as God's accounting system works, which we are not in eternity yet, we'll see we were chosen in him before the foundation of the world. But that's not how we present the gospel. We present the gospel the way Jesus did. He looked at him, he says, you want to be saved? Believe on me right now. In this instant, I'll save you. He didn't say, oh, you're saved in eternity past. The person will go, what? I'm 12 years old. I don't know what you mean. Jesus shared the gospel very simply. And he doesn't stop there. He doesn't just stop with the election and free will. Look what he says. This is the will of the Father who sent me, that all he has given me should I lose nothing, in verse 39. Wow. You know what that is? That's eternal security. Jesus, who talks about election, talks about free will, and talks about eternal security, and he puts them all together, and he doesn't explain it. He just says, that's what I do. You know, it's kind of like, that's, when we talk about salvation, that's what God does. You know, if you have a countertop man that you invite in to do your countertops, you don't have him do the plumbing. He does counters. When you want salvation, God does salvation. See, that's how he does it. And he doesn't even explain it. He just tells us that's what he does. Keep going to verse 40. Because it says, this is the will of him who sent me, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him. You talk about a simple gospel message. Do you know when Jesus presented the gospel, he presented it so simply? Do you know one time to the most religious man in Israel, whose name was Nicodemus, you know how he presented the gospel? He said, like Moses lifted up a pole and wrapped a brass serpent around it, and everybody who had been bitten by the snake, now do you know how big the camp of Israel was? 3 million people in tents. The minimum campground was 9 miles by 9 miles. It was an 81 square mile footprint to have 3 million people camping. And here at the center was a pole, as high as a pole from a tree they could get, stuck up. And you would go find everybody you knew bitten by the snake, and you'd, while they were foaming at the mouth and paralyzed by the venom, you'd turn them and say, Moses put a pole up over there. It's about 4 miles from here. But he said, if you look in that direction, you'll get healed from the snake bite. And that person convulsing on the ground in the deserts, if they would look at the pole, they were instantly saved from their snake bite. That's exactly look what Jesus said. Verse 40, everyone who sees the Son and believes in him. We go all over and we talk to people who are convulsing in their sin. We say, there's someone who died on a cross for you. And it's God in human flesh, and he took your place, and he knows you before the foundation of the world. But he died in your place and knows every sin you've ever committed, and he paid for them. If you'll see him as that substitute, if you'll believe in him. You talk about simple. There's no 12 steps. Believe in him. He's your only hope. Wow. He may have everlasting life, verse 40 says. And I'll raise him up in the last day. Look at verse 44. It gets even better. John 6:44, no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him. Do you know what? The early church believed this. The early church did not try and draw people into the church that were lost. The lost people weren't supposed to come to church. Did you know the goal we have is not to have you bring every unsaved person you want in here because they think we're crazy. I mean, what I'm saying right now, most unsaved people, they go, what is he talking about? Snakes and foaming and Jesus and whoa. They don't understand. Did you know Paul said if an unbeliever came into church, they'd think we're all crazy. What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to live this life and be so encouraged as we gather that we go out And look what it says in verse 44. We go out looking for people whom the Father is drawing to himself. That's why evangelism is not flash and powerful, humanly speaking. It's simple and it's very weak, and we get to witness the greatest miracle. That's why if you want to really be assured of your salvation, go out and lead people to Christ, because you see miracles happen before your eyes. You see people turned from blindness to sight, from darkness to light, from being totally ensnared by Satan to the power of God. But how did that happen? Verse 44, the Father has to draw them. That's why prayer is so important. We have a lot of people on the front line. We have our evangelist missionaries. We have our local evangelists. We're all supposed to be going into all the world, especially our little world around us. And we're supposed to be sharing the gospel. And when the Lord draws them, they respond. It's the most beautiful sight. Look at verse 47. Most assuredly I say unto you, he who believes in me has everlasting life. You talk about a simple message, believe in me, you have everlasting life. You can't get simpler than that. And that's how Jesus shared it.